Good morning or afternoon, I guess. Hi, Shannon.
I guess we'll give it a little bit of time here for people to kind of get in before I get started. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Sunday. I'm excited to do our card. This is kind of Copic heavy, but it's pretty simple, like some really simple Copic techniques. And I'm all self-taught, so I'm not like the best Copic. I don't feel super comfortable with Copics, but I think what I do here for this one is pretty easy, and it has a good atmosphere look. You can kind of see in the card we create like a ocean scene, and we even add some like sun rays, some light rays coming through the water with a really simple color splendor technique.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll get out my mirrors and
there we go. Oh, I didn't have the comments on, so that's why I was like, where is everybody? All right. Hi. Okay, so I guess I'm ready to go ahead and get started, and we will make this card. So I'm going to change views here. Great. And we'll get started with the card. All right, so let me put that to the side. Oh yeah, and the handout, you can find the handout for today's live, because these lives are really cool if you haven't been to one before, where we have all the instructions as well as our supply list all given to you on Saturday, so you can follow along with us. Let's see. Mine was lagging for a little bit. Hopefully it's fixed now. Sometimes you have to like refresh sometimes it's on your end and you have to refresh too. All right, we're going to start with a small panel of white cardstock. This is actually 4 by 2 3/4. It doesn't have to be exactly these measurements, but this is a nice scale. I liked how it fits in an A2 panel. You have a nice border, and you still get a substantial size area to create your little scene, but also I feel like I'm getting a little bit of an echo. Can I mute this anymore? No. Okay. Well, we'll just roll with it. And so it's just a nice size to work with. So it's 4, and the instructions do have it. It's 4 by 2 3/4. All right, we're going to start with this and the seaweed image. And that's actually it for right now. We're just going to start with the seaweed. We're actually only going to use 2 stamps from the kit for this card. I'm going to grab my Misty. This could be done with an acrylic block, but I almost always use my Misty when I stamp. I'm going to pop in my panel here. Oh, no echo. Good. Okay, good. It sounds a little echoey to me, but that might just be me. All right, so we're going to start by stamping both sides with the seaweed. You don't want to have the whole seaweed, just a bit. And, you know, maybe about like 3/4 of an inch away from the bottom. Let's do one higher, so one about an inch. I'm looking at my original here to see what I did. And then we'll do the other one lower. Oh, good. Yeah, I think this will be good. Even if you don't have the kit, I definitely think this will be informative. Just if you've never, just for coloring underwater scenes, a real simple way. This is definitely not the most elaborate. This is a very simple way to color an underwater scene. And we'll ink this up with a black ink. Hi, Rosie. Oh, that's so kind. And that looks amazing with one stamp. So I'm going to be done with that one. I'm going to clean my stamp here. And we're going to reposition it real quick and stamp the other side. Hi from hot Houston. Oh, I feel you, Kim. What are we today? 104. Don't worry, we just got started. All right, and I'm going to turn this around like this and stamp about a little bit less than 3/4, like that. You know, not have it perfectly symmetrical. It's much more interesting if it's not perfectly symmetrical. So this one's a little lower and a little bit more inward. Yeah, that's a good tip, is that you can always come back and watch these again. And what I like about lives is they're in real time. Because when I make my videos for YouTube, I definitely speed them up. Because I view YouTube videos like I make them how I want to watch them, which is like I want to get the gist within 10 minutes. I don't want it to be longer than 10 minutes. So I speed them up quite substantially. But sometimes for like coloring, I think it's helpful to see it in real time. I'm going to stamp this one more time. Ooh, 104 Ontario. Oh my God, what? That's really hot. All right. So there's our start of our underwater scene. Okay, I'm going to quickly clean my stamp, and that should give this just enough time to dry. Oh, clean out the pantry? I need to clean my fridge, but it's not going to happen. We're about to take a trip. Libby just got back from a trip, and now I'm about to go on a trip to California. We're going to go camping along the beach. Kind of fitting for today's card, huh? I don't know if you guys ever if anybody's ever camped along the beach in California, but it is quite an ordeal to get a campsite. You have to book it 6 months in advance, and literally, you know, when you're booking it 6 months in advance, the sites go within a minute. So we love doing it, but it's quite difficult to do. Of course, you can gamble and just show up, because they have some sites I think were set aside just for, you know, showing up. But if you want to reserve, you don't want to camp. Glamping, I'm going to call it glamping because we have air mattresses. We have a huge tent that we can stand up in. We're going to eat well because we like to cook. And we're going to be, I mean, we're not far from civilization at all. There's restaurants within walking distance. So I'm going to call it's glamping for sure. All right, I have a bunch of blues picked out for the water, and we're going to start with the water. You can kind of sketch out where you want the sand to go, if that would help you first. So for the sand, this is the lightest color. I only have 2 colors for the sand picked out. And I definitely have to make sure that he's in the sand a little bit. So otherwise it'll look a little strange. Oops. Looks like my ink is not totally dry. So I'm going to heat set this real quick. Yeah, beach camping is like not even camping because there's no bugs and the temperature is amazing. So it really is like glamping. I'm going to turn this on so it's going to be a little loud. We are camping at Crystal Cove or Moreau campsite. That's where we're camping. We've camped a couple times at Carlsbad Beach, which I love, but this is a new one for us. We're going to a new campground. All right, I'm just going to stop right there. I'll worry and work this more later. My ink is bleeding more than I'm used to. And let's see. Yeah, Libby just said Southern California and love the temperatures. I'm debating whether I want to start inking. As you can see, kind of bleeding a little bit. I probably should have stamped them beforehand so they had more time to dry. Well, let's go for it. So I have a lot of blues picked out. We're just going to go for it. This is BG10. Then I have BG11, BG32, BG23, and BG15. So a lot of blues because we're going to create a gradation here. Northern California is cold for camping. Yeah, I've never. Is that Northern California? I don't think it is.
No, I think that's near Laguna Beach, which is southern.
Yeah, okay. Sika definitely knows.
Yeah, I'm in Northern California, Yvonne, so I know exactly what you mean.
And it's okay to get a little bit to get blue on the seaweed. I'm not going to try to avoid it at all. We're going to cover over that, so don't have to worry about that at all. So I'm just going to go a little bit down with that blue, and I'm intentionally leaving it kind of streaky. And now we're going to move to our next shade. Crystal Cove. Oh, great. I'm excited. I can't wait. It looks a little bit more natural than Carlsbad, but it is a little bit further away from the beach. But we might actually have some. When we camp at Carlsbad, you're basically camping right off the road, so you get like beach sound and road sound. So I'm excited this time we might get a little bit less road sound. Now we're on to BG32. So you can see I'm kind of working my way down, going over where I previously colored a little bit. Again, being very streaky, not even trying to get a nice smooth blend. So very different than how we usually, when you Copic color, kind of a different approach. And we're getting a little progressively darker with our Copics every time. And I am using the brush tip. I almost never use the chisel in, so you can almost always count on me using the brush tip. Okay, we're doing great. It's starting to look like water. Now we're on to BG23. And I hear a snoring cat somewhere. My cats don't typically come up on my table, but I think maybe in our last live they did. I can't remember. Usually they don't come up and bother me. Last live though, I was sick and I was coughing. And now we're on to our darkest shade, which is BG15. So I'm very happy this time I'm not sick like I was before. And you can see I'm totally coloring over those seaweeds. Don't worry. We will color over that with some darker greens, and I'll cover that all up. All right, and now I'm just gonna kind of fill in where there's any little white spots. I'm gonna grab start with one of my lighter shades, BG11. This is where I missed maybe a little bit when I was doing that streaky technique. And I'm going to go down one to BG32. Got two dogs snoring. Sika, do your kitties snore? I've always wondered because my cats are like they're smushed face cats. That's what I call them. We have an exotic version, and I wonder if that's just because of their breed.
My girl has started snoring a little bit in her older age.
Yeah, my kitties are on the older end for sure.
I actually, when you said you heard snoring, I made sure that I was on mute to make sure.
I don't know if anybody else can hear it because it is off in the distance, but I hear it. All right, I'm gonna call that done. We've got our water here. Doesn't that look pretty realistic? And it was just really simple strokes and some lighter colors, or a lot of colors is what I meant to say, just to work our way through the gradation. Because I wanted to create where it's lighter at the top and darker at the bottom. All right, now we're going to work on that sand. Only 2 colors for this one. I've already kind of laid down some of that lighter tan when I was just kind of figuring out where the sand line was going to be. And we're going to now work with our darker shade. Starting up, and very similar technique just to the water. So I'm not so focused on it being streaky. I mean, if it is a little streaky, that's totally fine. But that on the water, I was very mindful of making sure it was still streaky and it looked streaky. Here, what I mostly focus on is just achieving kind of a gradation. I think I need to add some more ink to my Copics. All right, and there's our sand. That's the bulk of our background done. Now let's color our seaweeds. I have 3 greens picked out. I guess it's just seaweed. That's like a cactus thing, or cactuses. We're going to start with our lightest green. We color basically the upper 2/3 of each of the seaweed, I don't know what you call them, leaves. This is the part of the live where I realize they don't know what anything is called. Every time I do a live, it's like, I know what this thing is called. I know I'm an educated person. I know what things are called, and then instantly I get into the live and I go, oh, I don't know what anything is called. And now we're in the middle section, the middle third with YG67. There we go. Kelp. Yep. Is there a difference between kelp and seaweed? I honestly don't know. I'm a desert girl. I'm not an ocean girl. And I'm from Arizona. I don't know if I said that before. So we are very excited to get out of this heat and be near the beach. I'm very excited. And now onto my darkest shade, which is 28. And we're just coloring that last third. So real simple Copic coloring here. Yeah, we don't get much kelp here in Arizona either. But I'm grateful for living close to California. That's a nice perk about Arizona. So we go to California a lot to vacation. So, I mean, it'd be great if I lived in California all the time, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But I'm grateful that we live so close. And Arizona is really nice because of you're just a drive away, like just an hour a drive away to like 80-degree temperature. So that's nice. Oh, we have someone from Ireland. Hello. All right, that's pretty much it for our seaweed. I haven't even done any blending. I didn't even bother. Sometimes after I do my 3 colors, I'll then go back through my light and my medium shade and kind of blend out the transition. But I think that is it. All right, now we're gonna do the, I'm trying to decide if I want to do the rays now. I think we can. I don't have a, we'll wait. Let's do the shell, because then we'll kind of know where our shell is and we can kind of direct our rays, our light rays, more onto the shell. A membership, I've got a membership and I go all the time. What is it? What are we talking about? Oh, the aquarium.
Yeah, it's beautiful there.
Is that, where's that? That's not near me, is it? Or where we're
going? It's up the coast in California.
Oh. We go to Disneyland a lot. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but that is one of my favorite places, so we go there a lot. We will not be going this trip. I will have to show some reserve and not go, but we went twice last year, which is, I mean, it was kind of because we weren't able to go for so long, and we might have overdid it a little bit, so I have to take a little break. No, not close. Okay. Now I have the seaweed and the shell, and I'm just stamping them onto some scrap paper. What color was it for the seaweed? It was 3 colors. I'll hold them up. G43, YG67, and the dark, which is G28. And we'll use them again because we have another seaweed to color. All right, let's stamp this. Worked in Disney World in Florida. Oh, that's awesome. I keep telling my husband that our retirement plan is to move to Florida and we'll just work in the parks. I don't think I haven't convinced him yet. All right, and I do need to stamp it one more time. No problem. Whoops. Didn't let that ink dry completely. That's my problem. I get impatient. I'm gonna start coloring. But I think we did okay, even though we were a little bit of bleeding, but I think we covered it up mostly with our coloring. Okay, that's stamped beautifully. And believe it or not, we're almost done with our stamping. That oyster with the pearl is so pretty. Isn't it pretty? We're gonna do a little fun technique to the shell. So you know how when you open up you know how the inside of an oyster shell has lots of colors. We're gonna try to replicate that. And we are almost done with our stamping. We just have our sentiment left. This is what I like about the kits is there's always so many images that you could focus, like a lot of the cards focus on the beautiful mermaid and you can't blame them because she's gorgeous. But there's always enough additional images in the kit to create a card completely without that kind of main image. And this time we're not even using some of these other bigger ones. We're just using the teeny little pearl, oyster, and the seaweed. That's all we're using. All right, I'm gonna quickly heat set this. And we'll start with the seaweed. Yeah, this kit had a bunch of great coloring options. This was a color's kit, I think, because that mermaid, she was so fun to color. Her hair, oh, I loved coloring her hair. Starting with G43 again. All right. And then our medium, which is YG67. So the exact same greens we used before. This seaweed will be nice because it'll add a little more dimension. Because our sea, even though we colored it with gradations and it has like perspective, it's kind of flat. And just the simple adding like a die cut image in front of everything, kind of popping out a little bit, will add some nice dimension. And then our dark, which is G28. And again, I'm looking at this and I don't think I really need to blend. I think the gradation looks pretty good. I'm going to keep it as is. All right, let's move on to the oyster. So we're not going to color the pearl. We are going to use, at the very end, we're going to use some of the Hero Pearls. We're going to use the white for that, but I'm going to say that for the very end because I've learned over the years that any of these like liquid dimension things you need to add last. Otherwise, you're going to mess it up. So we'll add that at the very end. And but everything else we're going to color. So let's start with the outer shell. Just have some grays picked out. C1, C3, C5. Start with my lightest. Just kind of add a base. Coloring that top. And I'm going to color the inside right here. Did I do that? Well, we're doing it this time. It's fine. It's such a small portion of the shell anyways. And now we're moving on to our medium shade, which is C3. And I'm going to add this to the sides of both the top and the bottom of the shell. I'm going to create a little gradation here as well. And then we're going to finish with C5. And I'm just going to add this right here on the inside, right next to that pearl. And I'll add a little bit to the sides as well. And that finishes kind of the exterior of the shell. Now for that, let's do the oyster itself. Did I not grab my colors? I think I may have missed those colors. Let me check the instructions again. Oh, I missed them. Well, we got 3. I need to get one more shade. So we're going to need E30 and then kind of a tan brown. Tan gray, I guess. E43. I'm going to start with E30, which is our light. Just color that oyster real quick. And then I will grab it darker, E43. Color on the sides. Well, I even add a little shadow here. And this is so small that I'm not going to bother blending it out. Such a small area. Oh, good, Rosie. I think ocean ones are like calming cards to make. Seem peaceful. All right, so here's our colors for the inside of the shell. We're going to try to create that kind of rainbow iridescent look of a oyster shell. BG 11, RV 11. So basically a light blue, a light pink, it's going to be a light purple, and this is a yellow green, really light yellow green. So YG 00, and this one here is BV 00. So like a purple, pink, light blue, and like a limey color, key limey kind of color. Now we're just going to kind of randomly put little marks here and there. I'm going to start with my lightest shade, which is that YG00. Kind of color little spots. Think of like camouflage. Out there, little spots of color here and there. Now let's move on to blue. The next three colors, the pink, the purple, and the blue, are all about the same level of intensity, so none are really lighter than the other or darker. Again, just kind of color here, there. Something like that. Let's do the pink. And then we'll finish up with a little purple. I'll hold it up real quick so you can see. Now I'm just going to fill in any space that I missed, any white spots that I see, maybe with a little bit of our lightish, that yellow. That's kind of our iridescent shell. And then I think just to kind of push it a little further, all I'm going to do is grab my really light gray. This is one of the colors I used on the outer part of the shell. And I'm just going to add a little shadow here to the inside of that shell so it looks more cupped. This is definitely not something you have to do. It's really subtle, just added a little shadow there. This helps it look a little bit more curved. All right, and that's all our coloring done. So let's die cut these out with the matching dies. Grab my seaweed and my little oyster shell. Get a couple pieces of low tack tape to hold them in place. Am I doing this right? Nope. Maybe I should not die cut my oyster shell upside down. All right. And I'll run that through. also want to note that I did die cut out of some scrap white cardstock 2 more oyster shells and 1 more seaweed. And this is just for some dimension. We're going to stack up our die cuts for a little bit of dimension. You could definitely use foam adhesive if you want. Sometimes I don't always want to use foam adhesive. It's a little too much dimension. Okay, there's our oyster shell. And it looks like our seaweed didn't cut all the way through, probably because I ran it through sideways. Longer dies seem to cut better when you run them through like long ways instead of wide ways. So I'll just run it through one more time. And that came out perfect. That's something, if you ever have a hard time die cutting, just try rotating the direction you're feeding your paper through, because that makes a big difference. All right, look at how just by putting like this one seaweed down, it's added so much more depth to this scene. You have like layers and then we're going to put our shell, kind of figure out where we want that to go. Trying to keep everything within the frame of our little panel here. And I think that's going to be pretty good. So kind of thinking something like the angle like this. I'm going to grab a ruler here just so you can kind of see what I'm thinking. So I'm talking about the rays now. If I want them to kind of shine down and want something kind of like that. I'm going to move this out of the way. Doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of making a mental note of that angle. And then I'm going to grab my colorless blender. And we are going to pick up, oops, still going to use the brush end, but you could use the chisel end for this. I'm just going to start picking up some of that ink. You can see already, see how it got lighter? You just kind of go back and forth over to pick up more. You do want this to be up here, like to make a ray, you want it to be, well, I'm trying to make it a little bit narrower at the top and wider as it gets down towards our sand and our clam or our oyster. And then that's looking pretty good. Wait, I feel like I need more ink in my colors blender as well. And let's add like one more like kind of ray here. Smaller than this one in the center. And that's pretty much it. All right, before we well, let's stack these real quick. I'm going to add a little shadow underneath the seaweed. I probably don't even need to bother with this one because he's pretty much covered But I'm going to grab that darkest tan again, same dark that we used for the sand in the beginning. Just going to color a little shadow under here. Like so. Then we're going to figure out where this is going again, like right here, I think. I'm trying to remember, do I want the clamshell lower? Either way is fine. We'll be over here. This is how I had it before. Okay, we'll do it like that. And I'll add a little shadow under here where that seaweed is going to go. Something just like that. Now let's stack up these die cuts. So we're going to take that blank one, grabbing my liquid glue here. Start with the seaweed. All right. Now for the oyster, I'm going to first stack up the two white ones. Now the reason why there's two for the oyster is because it's going to overlap with the seaweed here. And so to go over that stacked seaweed, that's 2 cardstocks thick, the one plain one with the colored one on top, we need to make it 3. So we have 2 blank ones that we're going to stack up first. And because we're overlapping, I need to see where this shell is going to overlap with the seaweed. So something like that. So this little part here where it's overlapping the seaweed, that's where I want to kind of cut off our stack layers. Just kind of cut off that edge there with some scissors. And it's almost better to cut off too much than it is too little. There you go. Now we're ready to stick it down. And you're left with something like that. All right, so that's, see how nicely that overlaps to the seaweed, and it's very stable. It's going to mail beautifully, but I'm not ready. So I have the sentiment left to do, and I don't like to glue my images down until I've done that sentiment. Let me grab my Misty here. Where did I put it? That's like just in case. The only reason why I do that is just like just in case I mess it up. I haven't, those images weren't committed to that background per se. I don't have to rip them off. It's just me being paranoid that I'm going to mess up that sentiment. Once you've messed up a lot of sentiments, you learn to take some precautions just in case. All right, where's the stamp set here? Here we go. So I'm going to use You Are a Pearl of a Friend. I like it right there. I think that looks great. I'm going to stand up to make sure it's straight. I think that looks great. All right. Now we're going to stamp this. Move these guys out of the way. I'm going to switch to intensified black. I like this ink for sentiments. Oh, good, Polly. I'm so glad. I'm going to do it one more time, make sure it's nice and dark. Oh, good. Cindy she does the same thing. She's paranoid about messing up that sentiment too. I know. Because I don't know about you, Cindy. I'm a stamper from before the days of Misty's. So if you're a stamper from before the days of a Misty, or before you, if you don't own a Misty, then you definitely know how you can have this beautiful card all made and then just mess it up right when you stamp the sentiment. Even if you're a pro stamper. Yes, pre-Misty. All right, now it's time to glue down our images. Enjoy your dinner, Melissa. All right, you know what? I am actually going to leave the tops. I think I did add a little bit of glue, but I'm going to leave the top of the seaweed. There we go. That's the word. Free. I'm not going to glue it down. Just kind of fun that it kind of pops up a little bit. I like that. And we'll glue our shell down. You know, I just realized I added a shadow for all the seaweed, but I forgot to add a shadow for the shells. And pick that up real quick. They look kind of like they're floating if they don't have a shadow. Just grounds it a tiny bit. Look at that. Looks great. All right, now we've got to finish this up. We're on home stretch here. How did I do on time? Really pretty good. All right, so I'm going to start. This is a piece of Granite cardstock, and I'm going to adhere it down to an A2 top folding white card base. There we go. I just lost my liquid glue. And the whole card could have been made out of this gray cardstock. I'm just very frugal when it comes to my colored cardstock. I hoard it. And I almost forgot. So I did die cut two, or not die cut, paper cut two literal scraps of cardstock to adhere behind our panel. And this is going to provide some dimension too to that panel. So it pops up a little bit away from that gray background. This is subtle, but it adds so much. So let's stack these guys up. I'm going to put the color sides in. This is great because you can use some of your, your backgrounds maybe that didn't quite work out, or you can use some of that scrap cardstock for dimension. Stick it down. All right, and I think I have a little cardstock sticking out. So I'm gonna grab my scissors and just trim that off. Didn't quite cut these as small. I usually cut them a little bit smaller than my panel that I'm putting them behind, but I didn't quite cut that one small enough. All right, now we're gonna, or put it on there crooked. Now we'll just add some liquid glue to the back side. I'm gonna stand up here. If I'm gonna do anything centered, I gotta stand up. Make sure I get it straight. And that's it. Do you see that little shadow that just by lifting up that panel, it almost looks like framed art now? It adds so much. That little bit of extra dimension. It's those little things, man, that really step it up.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Sika. A little bit of dimension there with leaving that up. Super fun. All right. That's it. We finished. Oh, wait. No, we didn't. Wait. I'm sure you're saying, what about the pearl? What about the pearl? The last thing. So I'm going to use some of the hero pearls. Now the kit came with pearl like embellishments, which you could definitely use instead of this if you wanted to. Oops. Let's see, we got to get it going here. Oh, there we go.
Sorry, my throat is a little, I think I have your cough from last time.
Oh, no. I hope not. That was a bad one. And I got kind of outside the lines here, so I'm going to grab my X-Acto knife and just kind of push it back in. So that's what happened. That's what you can do if you kind of get it. You weren't getting it nice and lined. So you can kind of manipulate it a little bit here while it's still wet. And they're like, I think they're, I forgot the term, but the pearls are like self-leveling. Ah, I remember the term. So it will like, it won't have like a little peaked, like a Hershey Kiss top. It'll smooth itself out. There's our pearl. So that has dimension too, but I'm a little afraid to tip it over to the side so you can see because I don't want it to run or anything. Even though it looks good, I just don't want to mess it up. Looks like it won't do that, but that's it. Okay, that's it. Now I'm officially done.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you. I can't wait to see yours because you used the mermaid image, which is so pretty.
I did, and I love that it's big and kind of takes up a card front, and I can just put things behind it. All right, I think we can switch to my desktop now if everybody's ready. I just wanted to walk through the things that I'm going to use. I've got a couple of embossing powders. I've got the sand and clear and Watermark ink, and then this ink pad came in the kit. I didn't actually use it when I made this card, but I'm going to use these three green and blue colors today. I've got some black pigment ink, water, and then this is the card we're going to make with the mermaid. And then I used some extra markers. These are water-based markers, so they're kind of great for watercoloring if you've got watercolors or other reactive inks, you can use those as well. And then I'm going to use those same pearls that Shannon used. So let me clear off my space here. And we're going to start by heat embossing the images. So the mermaid, the seaweed, the coral, all of that. We're going to emboss that onto watercolor cardstock. So I like to heat emboss for these intricate, more intricate images when I'm watercoloring. I'm self-taught, so I like the extra help that those embossed lines give. And so rather than using black embossing powder, I'm just treating with an anti-static powder tool. Rather than using a black embossing powder, I like to use black pigment ink and then clear embossing powder. And then that usually keeps that black powdery powder from scattering everywhere. It ends up being a bit of a cleaner image. So I'm going to get out my stamps here. We're going to start with the mermaid. Stick her down in the corner, and then I'm going to use the coral for this card. Stick that up here, and I think we have been calling this seaweed or kelp. I'll stick that over here, and then also the clam with the pearl, and this little starfish. If you have any other space or extra space on your watercolor paper, you could do some other images as well. I actually, when I first made my card, I actually did the little fish. I wanted to say goldfish, but since we're in the ocean, I guess goldfish are not in the ocean, but I have an extra little guy left over from the last time. So I'm going to pick this up with my Misty lid. And I'm going to save this for later. Just go with the Onyx Pigment ink. I'm probably going to go twice with inking this just because my watercolor paper is a bit textured. And so some of her details are not quite clear yet. Hi, Angelica. And I think I'm just missing a little bit here of her hair. Okay, she looks good. And now I'm going to take ultrafine clear embossing powder. Okay, tap that off a little bit. So we're good to go. And it's going to get a little bit loud. Sorry, I'm fuzzy. Not sure. There we go. A little bit loud with the heat gun, so I'm going to put myself on mute for just a minute while I get this warmed up and heat emboss the image. All right. So I'm going to pull in some water here, and I'm going to use the brush that came with the kit. This is a water flow brush. This one has a nice fine tip, which I find a little bit better for an image like this that has some finer details. Bring in my markers and my ink pad. Oops. Okay. So for this, I'm going to work in pieces, mostly just to avoid working on adjacent areas that have different colors. So I'm going to start with her tail and lower body. And for that, I'm going to use the greens and the blues that are in this kit. And so one of the awesome things about these reactive palettes, and really any ink, is if you have a glasswork surface or a palette or any sort of craft mat, you can go ahead and smush it. And I've got basically all of the colors that I need. So I'm going to start with just wetting down this area. Doesn't have to be too precise, not too much water, just enough so that when I put the ink down, it's not going to stick. It'll have a little bit of time to move around on that moist surface. Got a little, inevitably a little cat hair, so I'm going to use just a Post-it tape to grab that up. Okay. So I'm going to start with a little bit, I think I started with some green at her tail. I'll pull that out. Just let that fill the area. I love how these reactive inks really work a lot like watercolors. It's a great way to stretch your supplies. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of blue and add to that. And I'm really just going for a bit of depth and color variation. Nothing scientific. Just kind of wanting to move from a green towards her body, and then a blue towards the tip of her tail. So I'm going to leave it like this for now. I might come in and darken it up a little bit. Maybe a bit more blue down here. And then I'm going to work this area of her tail. And it's very quick and easy coloring, really forgiving. So I'm just starting with that light blue. And I'll get a base layer down. And then I'll grab some green. Maybe up here closer to her body, start a little bit darker. I'm not going to worry about shadows and light. She's underwater. She's a mermaid. It doesn't have to be realistic. I'm mostly just going for some color variation between blues and greens that make it a little bit interesting to look at. Okay. So I'll leave this for now, and then I'm going to come over and work on the seaweed as while this dries. So again, I'm going to grab some of the green. And pull that along. And some of the blue on this side. And then mixing in some blues. These are very skinny areas here, so this fine tip brush is helpful. There's some other brushes. I think there are 2 additional sizes. I know I have one that's a little bit of a wider, but also a pointed tip. And then there's one that is more of a flat brush in the shop. If you haven't seen that one yet, that would be a great one for washes. And I'm just going to kind of try and scrub out this area where I went outside the lines. Some clean water. And blot it up. Okay. And then maybe I will work on her hair a bit. So for this, I'm using just a few shades of brown. If you have the reactive inks, there is a brown in the reactive ink line. You could water that down and use different kind of strengths of that to create some variation like I have in my original card. But when I first made this card, I actually used these markers. So I'm just going to scribble them onto my glass mat. And then again, wet down. Oops, I lost my paper towel. Okay. I'm going to wet down her hair. Yeah, reactive inks are great. You can also ink blend with them, which I like to do. I think I like to ink blend more with the reactive inks than with dye inks. I feel a little bit more successful. It's easier to build up color more quickly. And then because of the formulation, it sits on top of the paper just a little bit longer, which always helps with ink blending. It gives you that time. So I think she is wet. My lighting is a little funky today, and my eyes are not cooperating like they used to, even like 2 years ago or 5 years ago. So I am thinking I'm covering most of her hair. She's got a lot of hair, and then just down in here, and then that little area peeking out from behind her tail. Oops, did I get this? Okay. And obviously I've got something here that I'm smudging and dragging around with me. So I'm going to go into just my lightest color and really be very, well, let's see, I'm going to mix my two lightest colors. Be pretty loose here. So I'm going for full coverage, and then I'll go back in and add a little bit of the redder brown that I laid down, just so she has a little bit of color variation in her hair. So water brush pens are great because if you're traveling, the water is in the barrel of the pen, but sometimes I'm a little impatient, so I usually keep clean, clear water on my desk with me, and then you can see I'm dipping into that even though there's water in the pen. Not necessary, I'm just sometimes a little impatient. And I just grabbed a little bit of a darker brown and using that to fill in some areas that it kind of looked like I missed, even though it doesn't really matter. Didn't mean to grab too much of that different brown for this area, but it's okay. Oops. Wrong color. If you missed the blog hop, there were some really gorgeous cards from the team this month, including purple hair and some green hair. So if you missed that, be sure to go back and check out all of the options. So it's very faint right now. I'm going to go back into the other side of her head and add just kind of loosely following some of the lines in the stamped image. And my only intention here is just to add variation. So not really thinking about anything else than adding some highlights, or I don't know the hair terms, lowlights. But just to create some dimension in her hair. That might look like shadows, might look like something else, but it's really just for me all about some variation. Okay, I'm gonna let that, actually, you know what, I'm gonna add a little bit darker. She's looking a little pale. Okay, that feels good to me. Next, why don't I move to the coral piece? So I'm gonna wipe up this brown. I'm gonna add some orangey red marker. And here I'm just gonna go along one edge of the coral and then pull it out with water so it looks a little bit like shading. I love coral. I love being underwater and seeing it in real life, but I love the color of coral. It's one of those nice orangey reds. I don't always love reds, but coral is that special in between. If your water brush is letting out too much water, the first thing would be just not to squeeze it. I actually don't squeeze at all. I just let it flow. Sometimes if you get a brand new water brush, and I know this from experience, I've been impatient and I really just kind of squeeze to get it going. And sometimes I feel like that may affect some of the insides and prevent that slower flow. I always have a piece of paper towel nearby, so even though water's flowing, I'm constantly kind of wiping it off and just making sure that it's not too damp. I do, when I paint with a water brush, I still always just keep a regular paintbrush on hand, but I'm not, depending on what's causing your water flow, I'm not positive that there's a way to fix it. Is it a lot of water or just a little bit more than you prefer? Yeah, I only squeeze to clean it too, Rosie. So most of this, I think, has been kind of fast and loose coloring. Fast for me anyway. I tend to be a pretty slow crafter. Just adding a little bit more shading. And you can always come back and deepen color if you like. I think I'm going to leave the coral as is for now. And again, I did kind of get a little bit outside the line there. So I'm going to scrub that out with, just cleaned my brush and scrubbed it out a little bit. And then I'm going to clean up, I smudged a little bit here on her arm. Trying to scrub that out just a bit on her belly. Okay. So let me just take care of her flesh now, her body. Flesh sounds weird, but I'll take care of her body here. And I didn't do too much here. I left it very, very fair, only because I don't really know how to color skin. So again, I'm just looking for a little bit of variation to show that I didn't forget to color her, but I'm adding a very faint amount of shading on one side of her arm and maybe a little bit on the other side. Gosh, that's very light. It's just a slightly darker brown. No, it doesn't really matter. You're right. It doesn't really matter, but the die cut does leave a little bit of a margin around the image, and that's the only reason why it's on my mind. With watercolor, it's pretty easy to scrub out the color, but you don't have to. Sometimes when I'm coloring and I've gone outside the lines with a marker, if it's a Copic marker and I'm not able to use the blending or the zero to kind of erase it, then I will actually go in with just a white gel pen and color over it. So I added a little bit of a darker color under her neck just to pretend that I know how to add shading. And let me get her hand and this arm. Hi, welcome, Randy. New York. New York's got to be, I think, pretty warm this time of year, too. Okay, and then I'll just add a little bit of color on her forehead and pull that down just a little bit. I'm going to leave her pretty fair. I guess when you're under the ocean. Maybe there's not a lot of tanning. Okay. So definitely not a masterpiece, but I think there's enough going on. There's some color variation that it looks fine, and I'm pretty happy with it, again, because I'm self-taught. I'm going to add a little bit more blue. So now this area is dry, but I'm going to add a little bit more blue over here since I added down there. And again, it's just for a little bit of color variation and to go along with that blue theme. I really like the teal that comes in this ink pad. One of my favorite colors. Just going to intensify that a little bit. Okay. I think I've missed a little bit of her tail down here, so let me fill that in. Okay. And then I did get a little bit of smudge, scrub that out. This brush is soft because the bristles are a little bit long. Sometimes it's easier to scrub with the shorter brush, but go. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the pearl. My pearl is not as beautiful as Shannon's pearl, but I'm just going to use some of that that same very light brown to do the inside. I'm also going to use the pearl, the Hero Pearls drops on the pearl itself, so I won't worry about coloring that with a darker color for the outside. Overall, this is just going to be a very plain and light colored clam oyster. Do clams have pearls? Oh, and my little starfish. Okay, I'm going to deepen this color just a little bit over on the seaweed. Just add a little bit more blue. Okay, so here we go. Got the mermaid for seaweed, a little bit of coral. I'm going to cut this up, you'll see in a minute, and her little accessories. Okay, I'm going to set this aside, let it dry, and then clean up this mess here. You know, actually, I am going to see if I can use this for another project. So I'm going to grab, you know, this was unplanned, so, but I see all that ink there and I hate to let it go to waste. So I'm going to spritz that with just some clean water. Oh, it's such a pretty puddle. And then this is just Bristol Smooth, and I'm just going to drag it and see what we get. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'll set that aside and see what it looks like when it dries. I might be able to use that for a future die cut piece. Let's see here. Okay. So now that the watercoloring is done, I'm going to work on the background. So the background is just a piece of Arctic cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'm going to use Hero Art's sand embossing powder. Sand embossing powder, I'll show you in a sec, but sand embossing powder is really neat. It's got different shaped grains, I guess is the word, in it. And it'll, let's see if we can get this to focus maybe. So it really gives that speckled sand effect. I think there are 3 different colors in there. And then the dark powder is a little bit chunkier. And so for this one, get some scratch paper. For this one, I'm going to go direct to paper with embossing and watermark ink. And sorry, my camera is a little bit, I'm going to see if I can give it something to focus on. I'm just going to swipe this along the bottom. So maybe just around 1 inch or so. I'm going to wiggle it a little bit, and I'm going over it a couple of times to make sure that there is enough on there. Not in exactly a straight line because I want it to be a little bit organic. Okay, so I can really see that the colors changed at the bottom. And now, let's see, where did my coffee filter go? I'm just going to pour the sand embossing powder over that area. Okay. So with this embossing powder, because some of the grains are heavier than other, I usually find that the lightest color, if you tap it off, the lightest color will adhere, and then the finer grains are down, or sorry, the heavier grains that are darker come off. So for this, I'm just going to pinch and sprinkle like I'm seasoning my steak with some pepper. And I'm looking for those darker grains. Okay. I'm not too worried about anything that's floating up here. If you've ever seen video from the bottom of the ocean, or if you're a diver, then you know that sand sometimes, when it gets disturbed in the bottom of the sea, it floats up. So I'm going to pretend that my kind of messy embossing powder is emulating that. And then with this embossing powder, again, because some of those grains are heavier, it's best to heat from the bottom first. So with chunky embossing powder, with glitter embossing powders, any of those grains that are going to catch the breeze or the wind from the heat gun and blow away, if you start heating from the bottom and really get a good kind of melty layer first, that helps everything on top stick. I find that's the best way. Otherwise, I've done it many times where I've just blown all of that dark powder away, and I'm just left with the bottom. So I'm going to put myself on mute, get my heat gun going, and I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, so see if this will come up. Oh goodness, it's a little bit fuzzy, but you get the gist that it is. It just looks like sand. It's speckled, and I did try to mix two colors of regular, like gold and bronze embossing powder. It doesn't give, for me, it didn't give the same effect. It all kind of melted and blended into each other. So I do really think that this sand embossing powder is special and something. If you do ocean scenes, bottom of the ocean scenes, beach scenes, is a really fun one to have in your supply and your stash. No, the sand embossing powder did not come in this kit, but it's come in a couple of kits in the past. So, but it's in the shop. Definitely a fun one to have. I think of all specialty embossing powders, this is probably the one that I use the most. Okay, so now I'm going to die cut these guys. Actually, you know what? Let me wipe off my desk. I've got some embossing powder. The grains feel funny. Okay. So I'm going to use the dies that are in the kit and cut out these images. Yeah, I think there was a kit last year that included sand embossing powder, another kind of under the sea or ocean themed kit. Let's see if I can get all of these in one pass. They're spread out pretty well. Oh, I'm so glad that it did well, and that it's in the regular line. Definitely one of my favorites. I'm realizing as I'm trying to keep my head from being under my camera that I need to probably be wearing glasses. I'm used to working a little bit closer down. And let's get these little baby accessories. Inevitably, I will turn my gold. Oh, I got it on my third turn. I feel like whenever there's a die that's kind of symmetrical, it's always my last turn that gets it lined up right. Let's see if I can put it down, and then my oyster or my clam. I have to make a list of things that I need to Google when we are done here. One is what you call this, seaweed, kelp. And then I can't remember if clams have oysters or if it's, I'm sorry, pearls, or if it's just oysters. Okay, so I'm going to run this through my die cut machine off screen here. Let's see. Oh, phew, it fits. July 2021, Kelly, you've got a good memory. I started subscribing to the kit in, I want to say May 2017, kind of right when I started making cards. And it's such a good value. I had a little bit of sticker shock when I started making cards, but the kits at $35 are such a good value. And that price has not changed since I started subscribing, I guess almost 5 years ago now. It might have been 2018. But anyway, I feel like that's kind of amazing to get so much in the kit with a 6x8 stamp set and the dies, and then always some extras like inks or brush pens or embossing powders and embellishments. So I've got my pieces here. I've got my background, and now all that's left is to stamp the sentiment and to start adhering everything. So I'm going to go ahead and do the sentiment first, because once I get everything down, it's going to be hard to get it back in the MISTI. So where did my magnet go? Okay. And then for my original card, I did You Are One of a Kind. So that fits really nicely in that area. But I think for this card, maybe I will do a different one. It's really the same size, but You Are a Pearl of a Friend. Pick whichever one you want to use, of course. And let's see if I can get this cleaned up. I'll just set her on her sand. Let me pull this close just to make sure I've got it lined up here and I can see. I think that'll do. So I'll ink that up with pigment ink. I like to do all of my sentiments, my black sentiments, in pigment ink because it's just so crisp. So satisfying. Okay. Oh, Polly, I'm glad you got it. Isn't it? It's like magic. So fun. Okay. Set that aside. And then first thing I'm going to do is adhere the mermaid. So I don't know if you can tell, but she's a little bit bent, and I'm not going to worry about that because I actually think it adds really nice dimension. So it's just because it's watercolor paper. And like Shannon, I'm not going to use foam tape for a lot. I'm really just kind of going to anchor her down at the center with some glue. And that's going to allow me to tuck other things around her. And then when the card is finished, it'll let her hair raise up off the card as if it has foam tape, even though it doesn't have foam tape. So it's kind of a neat a neat alternative to always using foam tape dimension is just to let the shape of your die cut or the quality of your paper to assist in creating some of that dimension. So she's now just anchored down in the center. I'm going to put a magnet on her while we deal with the rest. And then here's where I really kind of got some good juice from my squeeze out of this piece of coral. So I'm going to have the coral stick up here, but everything that's behind her hair is really just wasted. So that's why I'm just going to trim it and then tuck different pieces of coral around other areas of the card. So let's start like this and do that. And then I think I'll tuck another branch. I'm just referring to my original card. Tuck another branch under here. And let's do there. And I think I have enough for one more. Let's do that. Under here. So now it kind of makes it look like she's sitting in front of a much bigger piece of coral than we actually had to work with. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue at a couple of spots towards the bottom of this piece, and then let it lift up away from the panel, the background panel. Do the same for all of these. Rosie, was April or May also a mermaid kit? That was my first kit. So I'm wondering, the years are all blending together now. So I'm curious if you're remembering the same year that I am. Okay. So now we have her coral down. And then next, I'm going to put the seaweed kind of here and a little bit in front of her. And let's see, I think I will just glue it to her. I might have used a glue dot the first time I made this card. Glue dots are so strong and they give that little bit of flexibility still, but this will work just fine. I'll put this down here. And then for my clan, I'm going to use a little bit of foam tape. Let's see. I don't know if everyone else wears foam like a bracelet. I think the first time I saw anyone do that was actually Shannon. I was like, that's a great idea. Okay. I got a lot of ink on my fingers. Yep, Rosie, that was my first kit. Hi, Mindy. Definitely check out Mindy's cards that she made with this kit. And Maria was on a little bit early. I'm not sure if she's still here, but she also made some beautiful cards. So I like to use tweezers just because it lets me see a little bit more where I place things. My fingers aren't in the way. Stick that down there. And then the last little guy is this little starfish. I'm just going to use glue. Oh, I hope you had fun at the lake, Mindy. Sounds really nice. And let's stick that little guy behind there. Okay. So that is the card front. And then the only thing that remains is to add a card base. And like Shannon, I prefer to hoard my cardstock and use as little as possible. So you could have just used Arctic as your card base, but I usually like to just use a white card base. So I'm going to add a little glue. Actually, I lied. That wasn't the last thing. After I do this, I'm going to use some of the Hero Pearls to just add some dimension and shine to that pearl. That lined up. Okay, there we go. And where did my pearls go? Here it is. This is new with the mixed media release that was, gosh, let's see, it's July now, so I guess a couple of months ago. I really like these. The consistency is really nice. It comes out pretty easily. It's fluid, and then it settles really nicely. So I'm just going to add some to the center there. And let's see, do I dare turn it sideways? You might be able to see, but you can really see that added dimension. Okay, so that is it for this card. Let's see if I can get in focus. And I'm going to set this aside and let that pearl dry. I'll probably just let it dry overnight. But there you go. So, and Libby mentioned I did just get my July kit in the mail. So before we end today, well, actually, let me just show you. This is the panel that I used to mop up that extra ink. I think that would be fun to die cut things from. But I did just get my July kit in the mail. So even though I'm really lucky and get to play with the kit before it comes out, I maintained my subscription because I really like all of the add-ons. And I think it was maybe at the beginning of this year where the kit started shipping in these zipper bags. I think this is about 8 by 10. So this is the July kit. I haven't opened this yet, so I haven't seen all of the add-ons. Ooh, this is really pretty. Oh, look at these colors. Okay. So the July kit is layering flamingos. If you haven't seen the blog hop, definitely go check it out. There are some amazing cards in the hop with this set. So it's layering flamingos. There are 4 layers. It's really 3 primary layers, and then the beaks. These were super easy to line up, and then some water details, some clouds, and then sentiments, and a little bit of extra. These are really cute, a little school of fish. I think these might be crawfish. A little bit of greenery. Anyway, super cute kit. Ooh, that's a really pretty backer. And then look at these colors. Oops, I've gone fuzzy again, sorry. Cotton candy, peony. Peony is a new color. Azalea, Arctic, and praline. And these names and colors and these cubes have the new Core Ink label on them. So if you haven't seen the new Core Ink line, it's mostly existing colors. There's 6 new colors, but now they're all just called Core Ink. And so you don't have to worry about the old names, but they're all just called Core Ink now. I think they're 57 colors, and most I think are Dye Inks. Some are hybrid, but for me, they really all kind of act the same. Really pretty embellishments, and then of course coordinating dyes. And then look at this. This is really pretty. These are the same Hero Pearls that I just used for the pearl on my card, but teal. So that's pretty. And that's not a color that's in the regular line. I think they're just 4 basic colors right now. So this is definitely, I'm going to collect this and hoard this a little bit. So I'm really excited about that one. So, so that is it for today. I hope you guys have fun. If you're watching on replay, I hope you had fun. I'm really glad for folks who are joining us today. We will be back on Sunday, let's see, August 7th, and we'll be playing with this kit. So if you haven't gotten this kit now, make sure you grab it once the kits sell out, and then they sell out. And sometimes, depending on what wins the vote in the new year, one kit, usually the stamp size from one kit will come back, but it might not be this kit. So if you like these flamingos, definitely run to the shop and grab it up before it's gone. So thank you, everyone. Again, we'll be back on August 7th, which is a Sunday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern.
Hey guys, before we actually drop off, I don't know if you guys knew, but I was here in the comments the whole time. Hi, it's Libby, and I can go ahead and go big, Sika, if you'd like. So Rosie here in the comments, she actually is one of the admins for the Hero Arts Kit Fanatics group that we were talking about, and we appreciate her so much. It is a fan group. It's not a Hero Arts owned group or anything. Like if you ask customer service questions in there, nobody can help you because it's not a Hero Arts group. It's a fan group, but we love that group and we appreciate all the people who are members of it. It's called Hero Arts Kit Fanatics if you're on Facebook. And what we are going to start doing is we're going to do a little contest in that group going forward. And so if you make a card inspired by today's make along, you can upload it there in the group. They have an album for every month's kit where stampers add their projects to the group. And so if you add a card to the June My Monthly Hero group, album there in their group, by August 5th, we will pull a random winner in there to do a $25 gift certificate to the winner. And so we're going to do that every month. And, and it just encourage you to get your kits out and make along with us when you're here with Shannon and Sika, or just whenever you want to make a card with the kit. You can go ahead and upload it. If you're a member, I know not everybody uses Facebook, and I apologize to those of you who don't use Facebook, but we're excited to do that over in the Facebook group. And we hope that you'll upload your cards and play along and use your kits. Because I know sometimes you guys subscribe and you start getting all these kits piled up and you, feel guilty that you're not using your kit. So we really want to encourage you to get those kits out and play and make cards. And especially when you're inspired by people like Shannon and Sika, who made such great cards today, you can try their techniques and go ahead and upload them there to the Kit Fanatics Facebook group. And again, I can put it in the comments on both Facebook and YouTube again. So if you want to join that group, it is a private group, so you have to join it, and then they will you answer some membership questions, and then they'll let you in. And they have, you want to be kind in there and do all the normal Facebook group things. And I think you can search for it. I don't think it's hidden. So if you search for Hero Arts Kit Fanatics on Facebook, you will find it. All right, guys. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And thanks again to Sika and Shannon for making such fabulous cards and sharing all their ideas with us. And we will see you again on August 7th is when we're going to play with the July kit, the flamingos that Sika just showed. And on August 6th, the day before, we'll have a blog post on our blog that talks about the products that they'll use, so you can get ready to make along with us, and we'll also announce that winner. All right, guys. So thank you for being here today, and we will see you again soon. Take care.